StreamYard. It's showtime. That's kind of cool. And I see hello, welcome, happy Friday, everybody, to another installment of Get a Clue in 52 for Speakers. I'm with my co-author and friend in so many other ways that I know you, Sue. You're an all-star in the Integrity Game 90-Day Challenge. You're co-authored one of the books in the soft skills series. You're a friend. You're somebody that's been supportive for so many years. I think the world of you, and I'm happy to see you. Happy Friday. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Good to be here. Yes.
Oh, look at that. That banner's already up. That's weird. I guess that's left over from last time. So welcome to Get a Clue in 52 for Speakers with Sue Mathieson. She is an Integrity Game certified coach and so many other things. I know her as the CEO saver, saving CEOs from all the slings and arrows and stuff rolling uphill, down here, and bi-directionally their direction. I am Jeff Klubeck, author and founder of the Integrity Game. And the Integrity Game is a 10-point model that makes up the first 10 tips in this book here for structural integrity as we build our career as a speaker or advance our career through public speaking. We want that structural integrity. So all of the Get a Clue in 52 books are organized through 5 categories. For ours, we just talked about the Integrity Game, and then we moved on to Bring Out Your Brand, and then we moved on to Be Fearless, which breaks down 8 steps to preparing for any public speaking occasion, the 5th of which is so important, it gets its own section, which is where we're at. Section 4 is elements, forms, and functions of the outlining process, getting stuff out of our head onto paper so we can start to see and work with and manage our content for the amount of time, for the occasion, for clarity, etc. But also on the way towards being conversational when we speak, right? We don't want to read word for word. We don't want to try to memorize. God forbid we forget. We want to be ourselves on stage with such command of our content that we can choose our words in the moment, which we'll be able to do if we've prepared so well, where we can trust ourselves to either say 6 or half a dozen or 5 plus 1, right? But we want to get it out and see it and work with it first and become one with our content. So that's where we're at. And in this section, we started with a mindset tip, but not our own. We're talking about the minds of the audience this time, right?
Yes,
so, Sue,
yes.
right, we want to anticipate the questions that will exist in the minds of the audience and answer them before they ask them, right? Anytime the audience is listening to their own self-talk more than us, we're screwed, right? We want to establish a connection and stay connected with our audience all the way through. And if we can answer the questions that we know they're going to have before they come up, then there's more listening for what we're doing, more engagement in what we're doing. So it makes sense then that the very first thing that we want to do, the very first element of any speech is the attention getter. We want to do whatever it takes to grab attention right away. So then the question in the mind of the audience is, all right, should I pay attention to this or not? All right, you've got my attention. Now what? Well, now I want to tell you what this is about. You may already know what it's about, but hearing me tell you what it's about may re-emphasize or reinforce or strengthen what this is really all about. A good reminder, a healthy reminder to establish this is what we're doing today. And then, well, all right, great. I know what this is about, but why should I listen? Well, let me tell you why you should listen or why other people in the audience should listen. You may be here because of, but you may be here because of, and some of you may be here because of. Well, regardless of why you're here, today we're going to deliver on what I just told you we're going to deliver on. Well, all right, you got my attention. I know what this is about. I kind of got an idea why I should listen and why other people are listening, but why should we listen to you?
To you.
Yeah, so exactly. Now, well, I'm the perfect person. I'm the best person. I'm qualified to talk to you about this today because. And in addition to how I was introduced, let me also add that. And right, we mentioned this. And this, like you hear some of these elements popping up when we did the All-Star session the other day, Sue. I'm like, hey, I put your backgrounds up. People can read, but I invite you. Is there anything else about your background from a credibility or a trivial perspective that you want the audience to know? Right. And that's your opportunity to establish your ethos. And it could be just your passion for being there. Sometimes it's enough credibility. It's just excitement, your dynamism, your energy. But usually it's our appearance, our competence, our trustworthiness, in addition to our dynamism. So those are 4 elements of an introduction. We start our speech by grabbing attention, stating what the whole thing is about, why we should listen to us, the speaker. And then where are we going with all of this? All right, you've got my attention. I know what it's about, why I should listen to you, but where are we going? Where are you taking us? So first we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and finally we're going to conclude with that. Right? And you see me doing this, right, in the All-Star sessions. Hey, I got these 3 big questions that I'm going to put on the table, right? And and everybody knows where we're at in any given moment, where we're headed. And before we leave this, we're heading to that. Did you see how deliberate I was about we're still here? And I use my
Yes.
body to it. We're still here. Before we move here, we're still here. We're going here. But here, do you see how my whole person is engaged in what's happening when I do these things, right? And then we want to transition out of our intro into our body, but also we want effective transition sentences to get through the body of our talk, right? And then ultimately we transition into the conclusion, the first element of which is when we're reminding people what we just got. All right, it's time to wrap up the talk. Hey, in the couple minutes I have left, let's review what we've covered today. So today we talked about the significance of potential, what prevents people from declaring their potential. And finally, we talked about some solutions from the integrity game that anybody can engage in to start biting that elephant one bite at a time. This whole right, boom, boom, boom. So that's a review of the main points, and that's what brings us to today. So there's two other elements of a conclusion that we want to cover, and starting with tip number 39, which is where we are today. So before we get into the word for word reading, Sue, how did I do in summarizing the? Oh, and by the way, once we're done with this section, in 2 weeks from now, we're going to get into practice building. We're going to get into the last section of the book, which is 12 accountabilities to build a practice as a speaker, or to understand where speaking fits among the accountabilities of your business or of your practice, etc. Right. So, but before we do, we've got two more tips, one of which is tip number 39 today, before we wrap up this section with tip number 40 next week. So having said all of that, in the 6 minutes that it took me, how are we doing, Sue? Are we ready to get into word for word, or do you have any comments or any color to add or any perspective? Go ahead.
Cool. Before we do go into the tip reading today, what I wanted to add was, first of all, to say it was great. Really enjoyed the All-Star session that we did during the week. One thing that I loved about it that you were just referring to was your focus. That's not the right word. Here's the word and it's gone out of my head. Anyway, your deliberateness in guiding everyone through where we were up to, when we were transitioning, because you had your 3 questions, when we were transitioning from one question to the next. But in particular, in the context of what you were just doing as a summary leading into today's tip, what I loved was your intentionality around including the audience, including the guest speakers, not the guest speakers, the guest people that were online.
Attendees, yeah.
The attendees. And you very much kept them exactly where we're at. And being friends of mine and people that had come through my promotion, that was really special to feel that these people are getting all the love in the world by being here. And James in particular, I experience you in the way that I described was fantastic. And to see you in action was really special. So I love that you are as deliberate as you are, because it just keeps people, it brings people into that fold, and holds them there. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
So I just want to say, the summary that you've given to listeners, to people that are watching the recording in the future, this really translates into a very significant experience for everybody.
Yeah, and I wasn't speaking. I wasn't the speaker. I'm the facilitator. But I'm still following all of my tips in the process of, right? In the context of, like, it's still public speaking. Even if you're the facilitator, it's still public speaking. Even if there's less than 12 people online, it's still public. Even if it's online and being recorded and going to be kept, it's still public speaking, right? Because, right? So I'm thrilled that you're seeing those principles. And then the added bonus, right? I walk the walk, I talk the talk, I talk the walk, and I walk the talk, right? So it's good for me to get that kudos, but I'm thrilled for you that here you're attaching your name to mine, your professional reputation to this integrity game thing, or this 90-day challenge thing, or what's an all-star session. And so you're proud enough to invite people. And then I'm going to ask, I asked for their feedback in real time on the session, but did you get any kudos afterwards or since?
So I did get a message back from James, which I'll just pull up really quickly. He just, I just said thank you to him and Ajiti for being there. And he just said, my pleasure. It really was very timely. And looks forward to catching up soon. So I will probably get more detailed feedback then.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I'm thrilled for you. Like that was coming through the personal fulfillment or joy that you've got in, hey, inviting people and then them getting exactly and or more than what you described, right? And being included, being recognized, and be holding the space to, I want to connect with everybody, even though you were the all-star. Every human being in that call deserves recognition and attention and the invitation to join the conversation. So that's really wonderful. And speaking of joining the conversation, if you out there want to come on board with us right now, here's the link, tinyurl.com/Klu tip, KLU tip, not a Q tip, but a Klu tip. I think we put something better in your ears than a bunch of cotton on a stick. Okay. That's a Friday thing, right? That's a Friday thing. Thank you. But come on, join the conversation. We're about to read a tip word for word, and then we're going to spiral into dialogue around it. And come on board, log on, and you don't have to open up your camera. You don't have to open up your microphone. But if you want to join the conversation, if you have anything to say about public speaking, if you have any questions that we can answer for you, if we can provide some live coaching right here in the moment, we'd love to. If you've got it, it doesn't even have to be about today's tip. Today's tip is going to be about takeaways and calls to action. So chances are a lot of people have something to say about today's tip, but if it's just, well, how do I pick a topic, or how do I break it down into main points? How do I organize my thoughts? What are some forms? If you want to go back to anything that we've covered throughout the year, right on. Sue and I are here for you guys. But our first business at hand is to read tip number 39 word for word, but not without a couple of, notes of celebration or sharing, or how was your week, and all of that good stuff. But if you're following along at home, and your copy of Get a Klu in 52 for Speakers is page 159, where we're going to pick it up. Sue, and it's not a long tip today, and it's funny because there's a lot that we could discuss. There's a lot that we can unpack. There's a lot that we could say about today's tip, but the tip itself doesn't take very long. Before we get into the word for word of it, any other comments, questions, or anything before we get into the word for word?
No, I don't think so. I think we go for it.
All right, so here we go. Page number 59, or 159, excuse me. Takeaways / calls to action. Element number 8, state the takeaways / call to action. As I emphasized to Sue and the other speakers I coach, your speech is almost over, but its purpose must live on. You know what? I like that, Sue. That could be a Kluby snack right there. Your speech is almost over, but its purpose must live on. Do not rely on your audience to figure out for themselves what is important to take away from your speech, or what action to take now that the speech is concluding. You must succinctly and clearly motivate your audience to remember or act upon the most important arguments presented in your speech. The example at the end of the section is a speech to entertain. The example at the end of this section is a speech to entertain. So the calls to action are not as obvious as if you were delivering a persuasive, motivational, or sales presentation. Still, the quote reasons to remember the speech are stated clearly and succinctly. Ask yourself, quote, what do I want my audience to remember about my speech 1, 2, or even 4 weeks after it's over? What do I want my audience to do? And that's in caps, D-O, do, right? After listening to my speech. What actions can my audience take that will really enhance the value they get from the speech that they would not just get from listening to it alone? 2 or 3 compelling takeaways or calls to action are all you need. But unlike other elements of your introduction or conclusion, where I recommend brevity and succinctness, you should feel free to include every takeaway or call to action that has enough importance relative to the overall purpose of your speech and its maximum value.
Yeah. So given that the audience have given up their valuable time to hear us speak, I believe we have a responsibility to offer them compelling takeaways or calls to actions. And this is actually part of our service to our audience, as you say. And it ties.
There's a little bit of breakup on interconnection there. Sue, can you read your last sentence one more time?
Yeah. So this is part of our service to our audience. And as you say, Jeff, ties back to the overall purpose of our speech.
Yeah. So once you've told your audience what to remember, take away from, or do, I'm going to say this again. Once you've told your audience what to remember, take away from, or do as a result of your speech, you're ready for the final element that makes it perfectly appropriate to then say thank you or drop the mic, so to speak. And that final tip in this section, wrapping it up. So next week, we're going to get into wrapping it up. But let me go ahead and get visual with everybody for just a moment, if I may. Let's see if I can do this. I don't know how prepared I am. Forgive me if I'm a little under prepared, but I'm going to go for it anyway with all of the vulnerability included. And here we go. So if you can see my screen right now, you can see the integrity game. Forget that for just a minute. Let's come over here to Get a Clue in 52 for speakers. Okay. Oh, shout out to Lisa Reed, who wrote the foreword for our book. Lisa's one of the greatest people on the planet. She is she's CEO for International Speakers Network, and she holds just an incredible gathering. She does a great job with her meetings every week, and I think the world of her. So here we are. This is the tip that we read today. Of course, it was a very brief tip. Here's Sue's section right there. And next week we're going to talk about wrapping it up. Okay. But at the end of the section, I'm always referring to, hey, here's a sample skeleton outline. I say skeleton because it shows you placeholders for the elements, right? So here's the first 5 elements: the attention getter, the topic statement, the reasons to listen, the credibility, and the preview. Where are we going with all of this? The 6th element is transition sentences, and you want to have transition sentences in between your main points, in between your intro and your body, in between your main points. You could even have transition sentences here in between subpoints if you wanted to, right? Remember, Sue, you were talking about being deliberate, right? So as an example of that, Sue, remember earlier this week when we were doing all-star sessions, my 3 main points, or the 3 main questions that I ask all-stars is, what's the significance of today's topic? What's the significance of wrestling with today's topic? What's the importance of it? Then what prevents people from wrestling with this topic? And then what do we recommend? So I definitely want a transition from my introduction into significance. I want to transition from significance to barriers, and I want to transition from barriers to solutions. I also want to transition from significance, barriers, and solutions into my conclusion and my wrap up and my testimonials and my expressions of gratitude and my last call, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But let's just say within significance, let's say significance is my first main point right here. Now I could break it down. I could say, hey, what are the rewards of wrestling with questions of purpose? And what are the harms of wrestling with questions of purpose? Can you see what I'm highlighting here? Does that make sense? So I could say right here, I could say, hey, now that we've talked about the rewards of wrestling with purpose, and there's more we could possibly say about the rewards, let's focus on some of the challenges or harms if we do not wrestle with questions of purpose. In addition to the opposite of all of the rewards, what else is at stake if we don't wrestle with questions of purpose? So right here, I'm being super deliberate, right? To within this main point, use a transition that gets me from subpoint 1, which would be rewards, into subpoint 2, which is harms. I could do it again when we get to barriers, right? If we talk about, knowing that wrestling with purpose and potential and gifts, knowing that wrestling with the questions in the integrity game is so important, what prevents people from doing it, right? And so now I could break this down. Well, there's external barriers. Remember the 5 P's: our parents, the peers, the profit, the press, and the politics, right? These are external things that are influences on us that prevent us from doing what we might want to do in our best interest, right? But then there's also the internal barriers, right? Which is our values, our attitudes, our beliefs, our emotional addictions, our patterns, our habits. So I could easily say, hey, now that we've talked about the 5 major external barriers to declaring our potential, what's going on inside that prevents us? So now you understand the point that I'm making. So I call these external transitions because they're kind of like on the exterior. They get me from the major parts of my speech to the other major parts of my speech. And then these would be what I would call internal transitions, right? And I could, if you need to, you can even get granular, right? And have a transition here in between this little A and B, and have a transition here in between this little. You could, because it's never overkill. You mentioned it before. It's never overkill to be deliberate in the ushering, in the escorting. There are some fast-paced people in the audience who'd be like, yeah, Jeff, I know where you are. Get on with it already. Cool, right on. Congratulations. But I'm getting everybody through the desert.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's just a review. So we know that, right? These are 5 elements, okay? And, we talked about different forms that an attention getter could take and how attention getters function. We talked about different ways to present a topic sentence, different ways to motivate listening, different forms that our credibility could show up, different ways to let people know where we're going, and then different forms of transitions, external transitions, internal transitions, right? It's the 6th element, but you can see how many different ways and times we can rely on transitions, use transitions. And I think they're underestimated. I think it's the underestimated element of all of the elements that we discuss in constructing a talk, constructing a speech. But then last week we got into our conclusion and we talked about, hey, where were we? Well, we were where we were, right?
Yes.
And first we talked about the significance, then we talked about barriers, and finally we recommended solutions. Okay, to refer back to our all-star session earlier in the week. And today we talked about this. So, hey, if there's anything you remember from this speech, one thing I want you to take away, one thing, and I like breaking this down, right? I like to say, hey, one thing that you can do that's absolutely free. You don't even need me to help you with this. You can all do this right now. Well, another thing that you can do that's really inexpensive that I can help you with is this. And for those of you that are all in and ready to go, here's our VIP offer. Does that make sense to you? So we can use our organizational types to break down or summarize in takeaways. We could do it chronologically, right? Hey, the first thing that you want to take away from the speech is the second thing you want to remember when you're reflecting on the speech. And finally, do not walk away from the speech without a plan to do blankety blank, right? You follow? Or free, a minor investment, a major investment. So that's stepwise. So there's ways to organize, ways to categorize. So when you're talking to your friends, make sure that you tell them. When you're talking to family, make sure that you tell them. And finally, when you're working with coworkers, make sure that you tell. You hear how I'm organizing my thoughts and making my takeaways a logical presentation. Does that make sense? And now we can get into it, and you can understand. But now, after I've reviewed the main points and summarized the takeaways or calls to action, now I'm ready to wrap up. Now I want to use humor or a tie back or wit or something, right? Like drop the mic moment. But we'll talk more about that next week. But I just wanted to give everybody an understanding of where we are. And then you can see that's a skeleton. And now you can see I flush it out. And this is just a very simple speech to entertain. I'm not talking about persuasion. I'm not even talking about informative. But now that I've got this skeleton in place, now it's really easy now that I've done this, it's really easy for me to just start filling in the blanks. Yeah. And so I don't talk about writing a speech. I talk about constructing a speech. I talk about building a speech. And even though I've got complete sentences written here, do you see this? Even though I've got complete sentences, I'm not bound in my speech to say these exact words. Yeah. Right. Even though I wrote this out, I might start my attention getter by saying, how many of you have ever seen a baseball melt on a hot summer day? All right, me either. But today I am going to tell you about my trip to see a baseball game in every major league stadium. And you want to pay attention because I'm just as excited about this trip as I was. Well, that's credibility, actually. But hey, maybe you'll be motivated to take your own trip, or maybe you've done a similar road trip, or whatever you follow. I'm not bound by these words. These words just help me organize my thoughts and get more confident that I'll trust myself in the moment. What these words help me do is actually memorize these elements. That's what's key. I don't have these words memorized. I have these elements memorized. So what's memorized is, hey, did you grab their attention? Did you tell them what it's about? Do they know why they should listen? Did you state your credibility? And did you tell them where you're going with all of this? Those are the questions as a speaker I ask in my mind, and I trust myself to be able to answer those questions in real time. It might be exactly what I wrote in my outline. It might not. Doesn't matter. The audience never sees my outline, and my outline is not my speech. It's just step 5 in preparing for my speech. But I wanted to make sure I gave this example for those that may need it. And then, of course, I don't know if we have, and then here. So now this is, right, for those of you that speak to persuade out there, right, here's the plan for a persuasive speech. Same thing, intro, but now we've got tips, right? Now there's specific tips on how you want to handle these elements. Briefly state, right? Dynamism, competence. Oh, right. These are the things that make you credible. So we're giving a guide. So do you see how helpful we've been to our readers and our audience members?
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
If you want to plan a persuasive speech, here's your guide, right? Yeah. So, what provides statistical support or progressively develop. This is nuanced, advanced stuff that we're not actually going to read to people word for word, but it's here in the section as a resource. And I wanted to make sure that I showed people that this is a step-by-step guide to planning your basic persuasive structure speech, right? Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. You could be persuasive by talking about the issue, the barriers to resolving that issue, and then propose your solutions, the actions you want your audience to take. And how do we see this play out? Well, when we get to our conclusion, there it is, right? Reasons to get involved, reasons to take action. You can even add a step to visualize the solutions working, and then a tie back, which is, we're going to cover that next week. So that's persuasion. I just want to make sure I showed that to people. And then, of course, right, here's a skeleton for people to start drafting and sketching out and paper napkining, you know what I mean? Their own ideas for their speeches. But also what we've put in here is at the end of the section, go ahead and make a list of the 9 elements. We, like summarize and take them out of word for word form. Attention getter, topic statement, reason to listen, credibility, preview the main points, effective. Where did I go there? Effective transition sentences, restate the main points. And today's tip right here, reasons to remember, or calls to action, or takeaways from the speech before we wrap the whole thing up next week. And now here's some coaching, right? Here's some more coaching for you guys that are out there. Pick your favorite topic and work it. Email us and ask for a Microsoft Word version of a skeletal outline that you can take my content out and put yours in. Or and by the way, this is last year, TIG Arena. Don't go there. Don't go to tigarena.com. Go to theintegritygame.com. But you're eligible for 2 complimentary sessions. Anyway, can you believe that it's already outdated, Sue? I'm gonna have to update that URL and then resubmit the transcript and get it. Anyway, the point being is that we're here to help. We're not here to just read word for word. Ooh, look where we're headed next week. Oh, this is 2 weeks from now. This is going to be fun. So we're going to fill in all of these blanks for you guys starting 2 weeks from now with tip number 1, but I'm scrolling way ahead of myself. Look, do you see how surprised I look right here? Okay. So coming back, I just wanted to make sure that I was showing everybody what's waiting for you guys if you actually get the hard copy of your book. But let me show you one other thing. Are you ready for this, Sue? And by the way, I want you, do we have your link somewhere handy? I'm sure that we must. Somewhere. Sue should have your link somewhere.
We had my link for the All-Star session.
Aha, there we go.
But I'm not sure we've put in.
Okay. Yeah. Well, actually, here's what's going to happen. If somebody goes to theintegritygame.com/Sue, okay, that's going to lead you to be able to register for free for all of, it'll roll over now. Last week, it was to register for your session, but watch what happens if I present and share screen.
Okay. Oh, very good.
Let's see what happens if we just go to, let me get let's just go here, for example. Okay, can you see my screen and all these integrity
Yes.
game windows, right? So if I go to
Yes.
the integritygame.com, I just want you to see how this works, because shout out to Edgar's in Latvia, who's the technician behind the scenes making all of this work, right?
Thank you, Edgars.
integritygame.com/Sue. If you guys go to integritygame.com/Sue, look what's going to happen. Pop. Okay. Did you see your picture was there for a second, then it rolled? Did you see that, Sue?
Yeah.
So now anybody
Yeah.
could use your link to sign up for any all-star session. And Ken is going to be my guest next week coming up, right? And
Fantastic.
then after Ken, when we talk about smart goal setting, then October 9th, Sue, your link will just convert to the next, whatever the current all-star session is.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So anybody in 5 days, 4 hours, and 29 minutes from now, I'm going to be working with Ken and interviewing Ken about goal setting. What's the importance of goal setting? What prevents people from setting goals? And what does Ken recommend in addition to my own recommendations on the smart goal setting methodology? So if you want to learn more about Ken, cool. If you want to register for the session, click one of these tilting icons. They move to draw your attention. And what's the integrity game? Well, the integrity game is, it's the 10-point model that supports people in personal, professional growth. And I want to get people here. So the 90-day challenge, these all-star sessions, what do? They're free to attend live. Okay, they're free to attend live. But where do the recordings go? Well, the recordings go into the arena right here. And the arena is our membership site. And specifically, when we go to take course and we go to the 90-day challenge, we can see that, first of all, anybody joining the 90-day challenge gets 2 private sessions with an integrity game certified coach. You get to join our private Facebook group where we put bonus content and goodies and so forth. There's downloadable fill-in-the-blank workbooks that will help you take your own notes on the sessions that we do. You even get your own set of behavioral assessments and a free PDF of the integrity game. I could show you where else you can get that. But look, Sue, the session that we did with you and Debbie, it's already up in the 90-day challenge. So this is the 3rd year in a row that we're doing a volume of all-star sessions that support people that are going through the 90-day challenge. And these sessions make it easier for the learner to answer their own questions, to actually take notes and break out their own workbook and start to take notes on the sessions and start to come up with their own answers to integrity game questions. So here's volume 1 that we did 2 years ago.
Excuse me.
Bless
Sorry.
you. Right, volume 1 that we did 2 years ago. And then here's volume 2. I still have to label these sessions with who the all-star was. But now we got 3 volumes worth of content with fantastic all-stars, with fantastic perspectives on the 10 points of the integrity game model. And all of this lives and breathes in the arena. And so there's a lot more that we could say about the arena. You could see here, there's a goal setting and 8 steps to fearless public speaking, which we've covered. But I will show people in our general admission, it's free to join the general admission section. And this is where you can get a free copy of the integrity game. You can get a free copy of Get a Clue in 52 for Speakers, or any of the other Get a Clue in 52 volumes that I've authored. And as I expand, if you want your ebook promoted here in general admission with a link to your stuff, let's talk about becoming an affiliate or a joint venture. Let's talk about partnering. Let's talk about your content being integrity game approved or endorsed. And let's create a bridge to each other's programs. Let's make sure that we all join hands in helping people get the life and business and career they really want. Tons of other free content, a preview of the 90-day challenge, a preview of Confident Communicator, a preview of Bring Out Your Brand, a preview of goal setting, a preview of flyby coaching and Kluby snacks. And we're going to have this populated with all of the links to all of the podcasts that I've been on. Same thing. If you've been on a podcast and you want a link to the podcast episode that you were on in the podcast library, let's talk about building a bridge to each other. Let's talk about co-promotions. But all of this content in here is free, and we're continuing to build and expand on it. And then, of course, we have a season pass. The 90-day challenge sits in our season pass level, right? When I look at the season pass, these are the full-blown content for all of our courses. So you get full access to Confident Communicator, full access to 90-day challenge, full access to 8 steps to fearless public speaking, full access to strategic staff. Oh, I've gone there, haven't I? I actually clicked it. Oh, yeah. Full access to strategic staffing and smart goal setting and confident candidate and flyby coaching. And so all of these things are obviously, it's content that I'm really proud of. And not everybody can afford to hire me one-on-one and pay the thousands of dollars and all of that stuff. So for more affordable investment, you can get access to this self-paced content in various forms. It's all soft skills that make strong leaders. And we're really proud of the 90-day challenge and what the 90-day challenge looks like. And Sue, I'm thrilled that you're an all-star and that you're featured as prominently as you are on Potential Week, not just this year, but last year's volume as well.
Yes,
And
2 years now.
not only that, Sue, but all these other sessions in volume 1, even if you weren't the all-star, but you showed up to all of these and you were participating in the conversation and you were asking the questions. And this is when I held space for you to participate, even though you weren't the featured all-star. And then you realized, oh yeah, I probably could be an all-star, Jeff. And sure enough, 2 years running now, you are, and you're Integrity Game certified and all the stuff. So all of that, access to all of that starts with going to integritygame.com/Sue. Just go there, register for a free all-star session.
Yeah.
But contact Sue if you have any other questions about the arena, the 90-day challenge, the season pass, the general admission, or anything that we're working on here. Drum roll, please. Last call. Right? Anything else, Sue? I feel like I've been talking a lot. I've got my Friday coffee kicked in. Everything's good. But those are all the things that I wanted to cover today.
It's rolling.
Yeah. Last call.
It's a few things I want to pick up on. Obviously, you've had an amazing week. You're just rolling it on. Am I correct?
Well, it's been a couple of weeks. We're in a season now. You understand? I'm doing the 90-day. I'm not just hosting the 90-day challenge and hosting all-star sessions. I'm on my best behavior. So we're talking about diet. We're talking about exercise. We're talking about no alcohol. We're talking about, you know what I mean? Like I'm on my game. I'm playing the integrity game. I'm not talking about this integrity game stuff because I'm the guru and telling everybody else how to do it. I'm playing the integrity game because I feel radically imperfect in my own life and I want to get better. I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better business owner. I want to be a better coach. I want to be a better author, speaker, trainer. I want to be a better entrepreneur. I want to be a better marketeer. I want more integrity in my life. So I'm just inviting everybody to play with me. And yeah, I'm in 90-day challenge rhythm. The energy that you see coming through me is because I'm playing the integrity game right now. I am in my own 90-day challenge right now.
Yeah, fantastic. And again, it was fabulous to be on the session this week and to be an all-star. Lots of fun, really, really good. And especially this year, having some of my own friends is coming along as guests and being part of what I've been part of for quite some time. So that was very special as well. That was one thing I wanted to is a last call. The other thing I want to is when you had the screen up before and you were actually going through the template.
Yeah.
The examples you were giving as takeaways, call to action, where you were going like you were saying, firstly XYZ, secondly something else, and you were giving those examples.
Yes.
That to me was tying back to the comment that you made at the start of the tip, where your speech is almost over, but its purpose must live on.
Yeah.
And I thought I wanted to bring attention back to that because it was those examples you gave were really clear visualization of how that purpose can live on, because you were quite specific in firstly, secondly, thirdly, and going through those.
All right, Sue, here you go. You've prompted me, or you prompted or provoked me thoroughly. Kluby snack. Especially when your speech is over, its purpose must live on.
Yeah,
there we go. The birth of a Kluby snack.
Awesome. I think, yeah, I just wanted to highlight it because you were quickly giving examples, and I'm like, hang on a sec. They're actually, because you underlined that at the start, your speech is almost over,
But its
but it's
purpose
purpose.
must live
And that's
on.
how you can do it. And you gave some beautiful examples there. So
Yeah.
I
So
just,
when you're talking to your family, make sure you, when you're talking to your friends, make sure you, and finally, when you're around your coworkers, make sure you, and that's a
yes.
categorical approach to organizing thoughts on takeaways, call to action, or it could be chronological, right? So the first thing I want you to do is, the second thing I want you to do is, and finally, make sure you, that would be a chronological approach to organizing my thoughts around calls to action and takeaway. So we had tips, remember, earlier in the, well, I don't have the tip listed now, but when we talked about be fearless right here, the 8 steps to fearless public speaking, or yeah, we talked about organizing thoughts, right? Tip number 5, I think, in this section. I'm not going back to the specifics, but remember we talked about organizational patterns, right? Chronological, categorical, spatial, geographical. Hey, so when you're at the beach, make sure you remember. Hey, when you're in the workplace, make sure you remember. And finally, when you're at home, make sure you remember. So that would be a spatial or a geographical way to organize my thoughts around. I didn't want to go too far into more content. But yeah, it's like, don't waste an opportunity to make sure your speech lives on. Be deliberate, be thoughtful. You prepare for that. Don't just wing your calls to action. Don't just wing your reason to remember. Be strategic, deliberate, and make sure you're tethered to the opportunity you have to implement the Kluby snack. Speech is over, but the purpose must live on. And so how much care are we taking to make sure that our speech, the purpose of our speech, lives on in the world? Go ahead, Sue. I get excited about some of the things that you're capturing. Go ahead.
And then the final thing that I really wanted to pick up on is, again, when you were screen sharing earlier and you were going through the sample document that, if people have the book, is at the end of the chapter, was to highlight, not only from a speech perspective, but as you had indicated, using that structure, even if you're facilitating a conversation, a workshop, being deliberate about those, that order, those transitions. There were a few things that really stood out for me as an overall. It's keeping you on time. It makes sure that you have available what you want to either draw out from, if you're facilitating a conversation, draw out from your panelists or participants. If you are speaking, to make sure that you do cover all that you wanted to cover. And it helps you deliver the value across that spectrum and not get caught up in going down a rabbit hole unnecessarily and losing all this extra that you could have added. So that when people go away, again, that purpose living on, they're taking away, in the time that was available, the absolute best of what you have to offer. And as you were going through that summary, that template, that really stood out to me, was the deliberateness that you talk about in following that. That's how it comes out, by being willing to do that. And I see it from you consistently, is that overall value that every session you take, for me as a participant, but I believe as an audience, that's what you take away, because you cover the breadth of all that you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, what's interesting too is, in addition to that, I mean, whoever the video editors are, will you grab that last piece right there? That was wonderful testimonial stuff, right? Like, thank you for that, Sue. And just to remind everybody where you are, welcome, even though we're in last call. We're in Get a Klu in 52 for speakers with co-author Sue Mathieson, Integrity Game certified coach. We are in last call, but on our way here, we put up Sue's link where you could start to get into our ecosystem and you could start to get access to free all-star sessions. And Sue's talking about, even though I wasn't the featured speaker in an all-star session, as the host, as the MC, as the facilitator, I wasn't the speaker, but I was a speaker. Right? Like, I'm still in a public speaking situation, and I still want to be aware of all of the elements, forms, and functions. Elements, forms, and functions, whether I'm the lead speaker, whether I'm on a panel, right? The other thing too is, let's say I'm being interviewed. Let's say a podcast host has me on, or let's say I'm on a panel in another talk. Knowing what I know, I can actually help the facilitator do a better job facilitating. I can keep the facilitator on track from my seat. We lead from whatever seat we're in, right? So usually the facilitators are as good or better than I am, but very often I could say things like, oh, that's a great question. Part of my answer will probably come up later on in the session, but for where we are right now, let me say this. Do you hear what I just did there, Sue? And then coming back to the example that you gave, which warms my heart, is in addition to everything that you said, delivering the value across the board, and and all the things that you just mentioned, which I can't even repeat, it was so good. It allows me, like, the image that came to mind is, and I hope you remember this from the All-Star session the other day. Have you ever got a deck of 52 cards and they're all mixed up and jumbled, and you wanted to, have you ever wanted to put all the hearts, all the hearts go here and all the spades go there and all the diamonds go there and all the clubs, and you wanted to sort them by their suits, right?
Yes.
Well, kind of that's what happened the other day, right? It's like, oh, I love that answer. Ooh, this piece, I'm going to ask you about that in question 3. But right now we're still in question 1. So not only do I not go down a rabbit hole, but because I've got command of structure, because I've got the wireframe in my brain, the freedom I have within the framework, now I can sort all of the content that comes my way and put it in its appropriate place. Yes. Hey, that's hinting towards the second big question I'm going to ask you. But before we get there, is there anything else we want to say about
that? And we did that. We did exactly that.
You're smiling bright, and I'm getting my hair standing up on my arm.
In the session.
What you just said reminded me of this other thing it lets me do, right? Which is switchboard operator. All of the content that comes away. If somebody asks a question, I'm going to say, ooh, that's a beautiful question. If you don't mind, we're going to pin that on the board and come back to that in about 20 minutes. Right now, what we're still focused on is this area before we progress. And now people feel heard, acknowledged, and then things go in the right place, and I'm sorting and I'm plugging in the stuff where it goes to create a through line, because I'm so, right? Go ahead.
And you're doing that not for you as a facilitator or speaker, but you're doing that for your audience too. You're helping them put their thoughts in the right place as well.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. So I really appreciate that feedback that you have. I can't wait for next week's All-Star session with Ken. Keep your eyes open, those of you that are out there, for promotions. And again, if you want to register for a free All-Star session, these that we do are every week, we're free. You can always come in and join Sue and I right here. We stream it live. I'm not streaming All-Star sessions. You can join and you can register and you can come into that conversation, and then they show up in the 90-day challenge, and there's a little bit of a price tag on that product, no problem. But if you want to join Sue and I on a weekly basis, you got about 13 more opportunities, right? Because there's next week, tip number 40, and then we got 12 tips that close out the final section in practice building. But if you want to join us,
coming to a close.
Yeah, the mechanism is the same. Next week, it's going to be Clue Tip 40, and then Clue Tip 41, and Clue Tip 42. So we try to make this easy. tinyurl.com/Clue Tip, and whatever week we're in of the calendar year. This is the 39th week of the year. Guess what? I've said this before. Summer's over, but the rest of our year has just begun, right? So how are we going to finish the year? How are we going to sprint to the finish line? What do we have left to achieve this year, right? So we've done all this stuff. Sue's link to register for All-Star sessions, tiny URL to come on and join Sue and I live every Friday when we're reading a tip from Get a Clue in 52 for speakers. But you can tell this is just one piece of a whole ecosystem worth of soft skill development content. We want everybody playing the integrity game. We want everybody to join the arena. The arena is where the players, the managers, the coaches, the trainers, the vendors, the media, the photographers, the fans, there's something for everybody. in the arena. And Sue and I, hopefully we're giving you a good taste of what we're all about. So once again, last call for comments, questions, jokes, riddles, haikus, limericks, or expressions of gratitude.
Fun session today. I think we've like your review has covered lots of value. It's been really good and fun to do a recap of the All-Star session as well, and just how what we've been talking about in these tips fits into a very live, real situation.
Yeah, I didn't plan on doing this, and maybe I shouldn't, but two things real quick. One thing I planned on doing was Dee Davis. Dee Davis sends hello. I was, on a session with her yesterday morning, and the editor, copywriter, formatter, the same woman, Patty, that helped us with our book and all of my books, right? She's on the team. And so I don't know if you know, but Dee is doing a book project with us right now. We're giving her coaching and production support, right? So I wanted to make sure I said hello to you from Dee. She's traveling. She's got a gnarly travel schedule, but she's a superstar. She's just go, 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 go. And she's an emerging superstar in sustainability. Her book that's coming out that we're going to help her with, or we're helping her with, is all about sustainability. So we're having a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot, of course, from her. It's great to chime in and support where I can. But what I'm asking you to do that I didn't plan on doing, and it's relative to Dee, because she comes and she hangs out with us when she can on Fridays and gets involved in the conversation. And, she's engaged us to help her produce her book. Can you give a brief testimonial, Sue, if you don't mind me asking? What is it like co-authoring a book with me? What is it like working on a book project? I mean, there may be people out there that are like, I want to write a book with Jeff. I want Jeff to help me bring out my brand. Or I've thought about writing it. Like, is it fair? Is it okay to ask, Sue, what has this experience for you been like of putting your name in the hat, us deciding on what we want to write about, me, giving you license to put your name with all of my content and add your stuff to it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and then of course, what we're doing every week, marketing the book, promoting the book, creating repurposing of content, because it's not just the tip reading now, it's not just text form, but it's our vocalizations and our discussions around it. So I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but can we hear from you about what has it been like thus far? I know we got 13 weeks to go, but let me hear from you. What has it been like to hire me to work on a book project together?
Sure. So I will speak specifically to this particular project. And first of all, it was a lot of fun. And once we decided on the topic, we then explored, and from memory, you had a bit of an idea of how you wanted to start it looking like. And as we started writing, it evolved into this more of a conversation, mentor-mentee, because it suited our relationship and how I had done the journey to date with you. And so what I loved was the flexibility, reflecting our relationship in the way we wrote for this particular book was the second thing. You had a great team sitting behind the project. So there was Patty who was doing the editing. There was
Sean, who helped us with our cover design.
Sean did the cover.
Stella with interior design. Lisa Reed with the forward.
Yes. So there was a great team sitting behind the project as well. It was easy. It was fun. I mean, we put that out. We put that together in 3 months, I think. So it was a fast process.
I mean, technically a little less, but yeah.
Did the work. Yeah. So all round, it was just it was fun. It was relatively easy. Yes, we worked. We knew we were on a time frame. We focused on that and got it done. But great team sitting behind the project, as I said, and that certainly helped to pull it together in a short time frame. And I guess for this, even more from there has been the experience then of coming online each week and revisiting not just the word for word, but being able to tease that out, have a conversation around how does that apply to what's happening in the moment. The things that are through the All-Star sessions, for this one in particular, it's the project in itself, but then it's where does that lead to next is part of what I've loved about the whole experience.
Awesome. I'm tempted to screen share and show everybody the Dropbox of all of the Zooms that we did and all of the sections and all of the iterations. And then, as a matter of fact, why not? Let's see if I can do it real quick, just to give everybody an idea. Let's see. Can you see my screen right now?
Yeah,
right?
It's coming up.
So just to show everybody, right? So look, here's all of the promo graphics, for all of the sessions. You'll see them. Right? Here's all the promo graphics to promote all of these streams. And then section 1 and section 2, section 3, section 4. So we're drafting, but then all of these Zooms that are labeled, right? We're meeting on a regular basis in November to make sure that we were able to produce by December to get this to market so that we were ready to go and uploading, like all of the stuff is here. And this just captures in the parking lot, so stuff that didn't make it into the book, and the final manuscript, and all of the conversations, and pulling together the real team effort where we're with Sean, we're with Patty, we're with Stella, we're with Lisa, bringing everybody into the fold. So here I am puppeteering and bringing the talent together, bringing my content into the mix, and pulling stuff out of you and creating space for you to lend your contributions. And I just thought, hey, why not? While we're at it, why not give a testimonial for this process of becoming a co-author in a soft skills project with myself, or any book that you want to write. With Dee's book, I'm not going to be on it, right? It's Dee's book. We're just helping her with it. You follow?
Yeah.
So whether you want to co-author with me, or whether you want us to support you in putting your own book out there into the world, obviously there's expenses associated, right?
Yes.
With doing all of this. But let me go ahead and ask you, has the investment been well worth it?
Has been absolutely well worth it. And even to that, your flexibility in sorting that financial back end has been very much appreciated too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that.
So it's added to the experience.
Well, wonderful. I keep seeing these eyeballs.
And the other thing I was going to say.
No, go ahead, Sue.
The last thing I was going to say in regard to doing a book writing project with you is I'm here in Melbourne, Australia. You're in the US there, and it was still very efficient, very easy. Sharing those documents via Dropbox it worked. It didn't matter.
Zooms, recordings, screen sharing, Dropbox, right? So we have all the tools in place to help anybody. Look, you don't want to die with a book inside of you.
No.
Right? The book needs to come out so there's legacy, and right, I can rest peacefully knowing that there's all this content in the world that my kids can get into when they're ready. I know that dad, they're not ready yet, right? They have to get out of their teenage years, but maybe one day they're going to actually click on the arena and pay attention to Pops one of these days. But my point is that we're excited about producing content. We're excited about helping people grow. I see there's a little icons here on the screen that tell me that there are people that are online that are watching or chiming in. I don't know who you are. I can't see names or anything like that, but I'm inviting you to join us in the conversation in the future, right? All you'd have to do to come on and actually talk and interact with Sue and I would be, I've lost the link now, but it's tinyurl.com/clue tip in whatever week we're on. So 39 now, 40 next week. And then of course you're out there eyeballing, but do a like or do a comment. Sometimes I could see the comments come through. Sometimes I could put your comments as a banner onto the screen. But regardless of how you interact, maybe you just want to be anonymous and don't want to be involved. I get it. That's cool. But what I really want to say is thank you. The couple of eyeballs on Facebook or on YouTube or on LinkedIn, wherever you're chiming in. It shows me on social media that there's some people watching. I just want to say thank you. There's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but for some reason you think there's value here. I hope we're living up to that, and we're committed to continuing to provide value every week. As silly and as jovial as I am, as vulnerable as we are, whether things are working or not working, I have gotten more fluent with screen sharing through StreamYard. But I just want to let you know there's always an invitation for you to join the conversation, always. And there's always an invitation for you to get on into the arena. There's always an invitation for you to register and check out an all-star session and play the integrity game, or, talk to me about co-authoring a book project or your own book project where you're the sole author. It's something that I'm excited about, and repurposing of content and having a reason to put yourself out there and doing something consistently and partnering with other people. There's just so much goodness that comes from everything that we're doing. And as much as I asked you for a testimonial, Sue, let me tell you that working with you has been a treat. Your interest, your passion, your commitment, your consistency, the analytical that you bring to my otherwise all over the place jovial. I think that we make a great team, and I just want to share some gratitude for you and with you, Sue, for being here. And for those of you that are out there chiming in, thank you for taking time to check out what we're doing. And we hope to interact with you more directly, more intimately, more productively. We hope we are a part of your structural integrity and your soft skill development, and you getting the life, career, business you really want, whether it's a speech at a time or organized thought at a time, or all of these tips it's not just for speakers. Anybody that's organizing thoughts and wants to get their stuff into the world, we think we can help. All right, Sue, anything else for today before we sign off? Anything else?
That's it for me.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, happy Friday. This is the last Friday of September. We'll see you in October. And thanks again for, what is it? 39 down, 13 to go. All right, Sue, we'll see you Wednesday, and of course next Friday as well. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Good. Bye.